You're listening to 99.1 WQRT-LP, and welcome to Radio Free Book Club for September 2025. I'm Ken Honeywell. I'm a writer and reader from Indianapolis, and this month we're off to the east side of the Pacific Northwest, Spokane, Washington and vicinity, including that white nationalist paradise up in the Idaho Panhandle, with Jess Walter's latest novel, So Far Gone. It's Walter's 8th novel. Among them, the best-selling Beautiful Ruins and The Cold Millions. The Zero from 2007 was a National Book Award finalist. 2004, Citizen Vince won the Edgar Award for Best Novel. He's won an O. Henry Award and a Pushcart Prize for his short fiction. He's appeared in Best American Short Stories 3 times, so this Jess Walter is no slouch. So Far Gone, our protagonist Reese Kinnick, a 60-ish ex-environmental affairs reporter, has lost his job, alienated his family, and is living off the grid when his past comes roaring back into his life in the form of a couple of grandkids he barely knows, dumped on him by a wayward daughter who's married to a conspiracy-believing white Christian nationalist, and it gets more complicated from there. So thank goodness we have a very skilled team of Radio Free Book Club members to sort things out for us. They're all book club veterans. In fact, they were all here just a couple of shows ago to talk about friends helping friends, and there are some interesting parallels with that book to consider. So before we start considering, let's say hello to them. Hello, Jen.
Hello.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jen Bingham. I am a reader and writer from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've recently had cataract surgery, and I recommend that everyone's eyes don't need cataract surgery and retain their perfect childhood vision.
Yeah, well, how did it go?
It is a long process. I got this weird new technology called light adjustable lenses where they're supposed to go in and perfectly adjust your eyes over like a month, but it's been a couple months now, and they're still working on it.
Wow. Well, I was going to say, I'm not sure I've ever seen you without glasses before.
Well, that I can kind of see.
Yeah. Cool.
I can see well enough to drive, but I can't see close up as well as I would like.
Yeah, so did someone hold the book for you far away from you?
I squinted.
Oh, good. All right. When you got it, you got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, Ken. I'm Robin Beery, a writer and reader from Indianapolis as well. I don't know about cataract surgery, but I'm scheduled to have the scales removed from my eyes, which have been in place since, I think around 2015. So I hope that nothing, very dramatic or, no big changes have happened since then. Because I would hate to find out about those all at once.
Yeah, well, just keep lying low. Take it just a day at a time.
Okay.
Go back to your lair that your great-grandfather built or whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. Yeah, and we have an extra special pinch hitter today. He was not originally scheduled to be on this show, but as usual, he steps up. Hello, Alex Mattingly.
Hey, Ken. Thanks for having me. I'm Alex Mattingly, a reader and writer from Fillmore, Indiana, and as of this year, a first-time beekeeper.
Yeah, how's that going?
So far, so good. They haven't fled, which is one of the things they apparently can do sometimes. So our next big hurdle is just to keep them all alive through the winter.
Yeah.
If we keep them alive until next year, then we might get some honey out of it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and Alex, tell us just one more time about your magazine.
Oh, yes. So I'm also the editor of Cold Caller Magazine. It's a publication on Substack that focuses on crime and mystery fiction.
Yeah, I just read a new story this morning. It's really good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was Jessica Adams' Strangers, which is a very unsettling piece, I thought.
It is at that, yeah. Nice work by Jessica, and nice work by you, Alex, for being a smart editor.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for reading.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, now before we put on our flannel shirts and go out to the Northwest, Robin and Alex, you kind of are. Robin, you're at least checkered.
I've always
more
said
than
so.
ways than one, yeah.
You should know there is plenty to spoil in So Far Gone, and we'll be spoiling the heck out of it. So if you're planning to read it, you want to keep the surprises surprising, you might want to come back and listen at a later time, which is easy because you can find this and all the episodes of Radio Free Book Club on Spotify, Apple, just about anywhere you stream podcasts. We hope you also subscribe to our free Radio Free Book Club Substack for non-spoiler notes about the book, including whether or not this able group of commenters would recommend it. So before we start talking about the book, let's talk about Jess Walter. Is anybody familiar with Jess Walter? Anybody have read Jess Walter before?
I've read one of his story collections, We Live in Water, which I enjoyed a lot. I get him, when I think about his stories, I tend to kind of confuse him with George Saunders a little bit because I feel like he covers some similar character ground or emotional ground maybe, and I felt that way a lot reading this book. There were a lot of moments when I thought this feels a little, in a good way, this isn't a pejorative, but like it's like, oh, this feels a little like I'm reading a George Saunders novel.
Yeah, interesting. Robin, how about you?
Not familiar at all, but I can't conceive of George Saunders' comparison being pejorative, so
yeah,
it sounds like a good thing.
No kidding. Jen?
Not familiar to the point where I thought Jess Waters was a woman before I read a little bit more about him.
Yeah, and as I recall, I did read Beautiful Ruins back however many years ago it was out, and I thought the same thing. It's kind of a love story, as I recall. I don't remember it real well, but I think it's maybe set in Italy. But I remember liking it. I believe I also read We Live in Water. And so, yeah, I'm familiar with Jess Walter, but haven't read anything of his in some time. But yeah, let's talk about the book. What'd you all think? What'd you all think overall? Jen, what'd you think of it?
I enjoyed it, partly because I haven't been able to read much lately because of my eyes. So it's the first book I've actually read since our previous book.
Yeah.
So I was super into it as far as reading a book. There were a lot of things about it I liked. There were some serious reservations I had about character motivation and behavior. I don't know if you want me to get into a particular one that drove me insane.
Well, yeah, go right ahead. We'll talk about it more, but please.
There was a 13-year-old girl missing with a 19-year-old boy, and people went to bed that night talking about how worried they were rather than going to the police. And I was just almost couldn't finish reading the book at that point.
Yeah, that was, I think that was a bad decision on a lot of people's parts. I think, Bethany probably made a lot of bad decisions herself, and really so did Reese, and we can talk about more of that.
I just didn't even find it believable.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't believe that parents and grandparents would be like, oh, well, that kid seems fine. I mean, the next day they found out he was gay. They needed to find out he was gay the previous night, because otherwise the things that can happen to 13-year-old girls kidnapped by 19-year-old boys are just not things where you go to bed.
Yeah, right. Especially maybe the 19-year-old boy who comes from the white nationalist camp.
Who is supposedly betrothed to her, too.
Betrothed to her, right.
Yeah. Where it seems like maybe that kid would take off with her and rape her, honestly.
Yeah. Very, very good point, Jen. Robin Beery, what did you think?
Similarly, I thought it was a good read. I liked the characters, Reese, Lucy, his one-time flame, and then Lucy's one-time flame.
Crazy Chuck. Crazy-ass Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck. I thought they were all great characters. Chuck, I honestly would have loved to have seen a lot more of, but I can talk more about that later too.
Yeah. Let's do for sure. Alex, what'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it overall. I thought the structure of the book was really interesting. You kind of get each section starts with like what happened to so and so a character who's been introduced in some way. There'll be kind of a flashback to fill in some piece of missing backstory, and then kind of advance the plot to the next character. So there's almost like this baton pass that happens from section to section that I thought was kind of interesting. I thought the structure was good. I thought the characters were also interesting. There were a few times I thought, the behavior seemed odd, and the stakes felt like they wanted to be higher than the characters were acting like they were.
Yes.
With the kidnapped girl, and then just any time, several other times I just felt like something fairly dramatic would happen and everybody would kind of, I don't know, take a step back in a weird way, or everybody would be okay. Like there's a scene where kind of the cop / private investigator who's helping Reese gets shot, but it doesn't really have any major consequences in the book. Like it sort of puts him on the sidelines for a minute.
Well, really puts him on the sidelines for the rest of the book. We almost don't see him again in the whole book.
But no, I mean, there's a little concern for him, but like, he turns out to be fine. He's an inconvenience for another character who takes care of it. But it felt like that would be a moment to kind of ratchet up the stakes a little bit, and he doesn't do that. So then it kind of, that pattern persists throughout the book, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I agree with you that I thought structurally it was interesting. I felt like the tone, the kind of near the end scene, which we'll talk about, was tonally completely different, because that scene of Chuck getting shot, I mean, really, that was played for laughs. I mean, that was a serious shooting, but it was really kind of comic in tone, and really the book was kind of comic in tone. And you mentioned George Saunders. I was thinking of Richard Russo, and kind of feeling the same way. The protagonist is kind of an older, middle-aged or older, sad sack white guy, and then there's like this horrifically violent thing that happens at the end, and it goes from being a comedy to something a lot more serious than that. So yeah, and to me, not as skillfully as Richard Russo did the same thing, but we can talk a lot more about that too. Alex, I also wanted to ask you, you are running a crime fiction publication. Is this crime fiction?
I mean, I take a pretty broad view of my definition, so I would probably put it as like crime-ish fiction, maybe. I guess for me, the stakes are really the biggest part of it that made it feel, for the most part, even though at the end, I mean, I know we're going to talk about this later, there's kind of a climactic act of like confrontation and violence. For the most part in this book, it does feel more like kind of a comedy of, this family trying to come together, but there's always like some person who's been misplaced. So at first it's the mom, and then it's the kid, then it's the other kid. And so there's a lot of like shuffling, that the way it's done feels very like exaggerated to the point of kind of being cartoonish and silly. And there is a little more gravity than that. I mean, the characters, they're fleshed out, and I think they feel like fairly real people. But just the way things are kind of moved on and off stage felt much more like sitcom-y, I think, than the ending of the book, which felt very different from the tone of the rest of the book, which can work. But most of this, I felt like it played with some of those genre elements, like especially the cop who comes in and it seems like he's going to be kind of Reese's helper throughout the rest of the book. And then when he's sidelined, to me, that was kind of Jess Walter telegraphing, like, this isn't actually a crime novel, because this character who would have been the private eye who kind of helps you through, 2/3 of this book, we're going to just like knock him out and then move on to what I'm actually interested in. So I felt like he was deliberately not writing a crime novel until the very end, when he decided, no, actually, this is a crime novel after all.
Yeah.
I think I had the sense that, this was more kind of a plot or story skeleton to kind of explore like the thematic concern, which to me was kind of the cost of disengagement. Try, like, when you just throw up your hands, decide, well, I'm done with the world and with people, and I'm just gonna, go wait out the end, which is what Reese does to a certain extent. I think Lucy was doing that, in a less dramatic way, and Chuck too, had sort of given up on trying to be and what he had wanted to be and do what he had wanted to do, or even try,
Yeah, I think that's right, Robin, and I also think it's interesting though that those three characters you named all got in a. It didn't go so well for them for re-engaging with the world.
Right. That's why you disengage in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The world sucks.
Just stay away.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about the opening a little bit. How did the opening work for you, Jen? Were you intrigued right away? Did it get you into it? I mean, a lot happens in the first few pages. You get a lot of information.
I found it to be somewhat off-putting because I didn't want to be engaging with a Trump crazy supporter in that degree. Like, I could feel Kinnick's frustration and his desire to hit the person seemed fairly satisfactory, but I just was like, oh God, I just don't want to sit through another reenactment of this same again because I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't find those people interesting. So, like, in the end, when that person gets shot, it's like, well, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a lot more too. I do think that they went out of their way to try to make Shane not so odious. I mean, the only time we actually saw him before the end of the book, he was a real jerk.
Mm-hmm.
But over and over again, we heard how he wasn't really a bad guy. I mean, he had gotten in over his head on this religion stuff, but he was really a good dad. And for some reason, Bethany could just blow him off. And yeah, I thought.
Yeah, it's a great dad to abandon your children right after your wife abandons your children and just leave them by themselves.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of evidence of great parenting.
No, there wasn't a lot of evidence of great parenting really anywhere in the book.
I do agree that the book kind of wants to soften itself toward him. Like, I agree.
Yeah.
I think he's not like a good father by any means, but like when Reese kind of takes the kids to the church where he's going to drop them off at first and then kind of changes his mind, like, the kids don't seem to feel like they're in any jeopardy at all. Like,
No.
you never get the sense that, like, they're really concerned they're being thrust back into this abusive situation. They're just like, Grandpa, I've got a chess tournament. Like, their concern does not make you feel that Reese is necessarily responding to a real threat. And I felt that way kind of throughout the book. Like, Shane is kind of the threat to the family, but at the same time, it's kind of being filtered through Reese, who obviously got frustrated enough to hit him and estrange himself from the whole family. So it was just hard to pin it down, but all the other characters were reacting to him in such a way that, yeah, it made the stakes feel much lower than they would have if he was like more of a monster.
This book didn't have a good sense of risk assessment in any of the elements. That's one thing that I didn't like about it was, like, there was a lot of dangerous stuff happening and people were like, I think we've already touched on this, but they made him seem kind of stupid, actually.
Yeah. Well, that was really also a really stupid move of Chuck's to tell Reese to take the kids and go and just still be there with no way to get out of it and
no phone, no
right.
vehicle.
Yeah.
And the people with the guns showing up.
Although, I mean, at least he was the only one at risk by doing that, which
He
didn't
was.
put anyone else at risk.
And
so
he's built
kind
up
of the
as
hero of the
being,
book.
he like has bad risk assessment built into him because apparently he's got some mental health issues that cause him to take unnecessary risks. So, and that was like the one case where you're like, yeah, that guy seems like he would do that.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's another one of those, kind of save the cat things, I think, that, we like Chuck because he's done this kind of selfless act to, pull his friend and romantic rival, out of the fire.
He's just kind of fun, too.
Yeah, I thought he was a great character. I agree. I would love to have seen more Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, so why sideline him and then pretty much abandon him for the rest of the book? It's very puzzling.
Well, and one of the things I noticed at the beginning was like almost like a let's get a group together kind of I noticed a lot of creaking plot things creaking into place, like, all right. And then it was like, but it was fun because it seemed like it was getting a group of people together in a really creaky way. And then the group of people got abandoned. And I mean, it was still fine. It was fun. I liked I liked the main character. I liked Kinnick too.
Yeah, I think he made Kinnick a very likable character, and I just wanted to talk about that too. Robin, how did that happen? How did we like Kinnick, even though he was irresponsible? He had a hot temper.
I mean, I guess I could identify with his politics. I can identify his frustration, right? I mean, working, I'd never worked in journalism, but it's frustrating to me the state that we've let journalism get to. So that's always sympathetic to me. But honestly, I mean, if those like exterior things to him, somewhat exterior things hadn't been in place, I'm not sure I actually would have been all that sympathetic. If he was just some guy who ran off to the woods because he didn't like the way the world was going, if I weren't so in line with his values, I don't know if I'd be as sympathetic.
Yeah, that decision to just live off the grid is something that a lot of people, probably including myself, have had that kind of desire to, think about that anyway. I think when I was a lot younger, that seemed like a great thing to do, to just go, build a house in the woods somewhere and get away from everybody. Yeah, have you guys ever felt that way? I mean, Alex, you moved out to the country. It's not anything like the same thing, but you did leave the city for the country.
Yeah, I think there is probably a little bit of that, like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to be a little further out? And then you do it, and there's like, well, there's some real cons to this situation.
Right.
I mean, we're far away from everything. We're far away from, amenities and things like that.
Right. And the mice.
There's a lot more mice to deal with.
Sure.
Raccoons.
Have you had raccoon problems at all, like Reese did?
No, we have had a lot of skunks lately, though. Oh. Which they're pretty mellow, but they're there in abundance, which is interesting. One of the things I thought was interesting about Reese's project out in the middle of nowhere was that he was trying to deconstruct all signs that anyone had ever lived there. So like emptying the landfill that his like grandfather or great grandfather had built and tearing down this barn that was on the property. So he's kind of engaged in this project of not just like fleeing civilization, but erasing any trace of his existence from this refuge he's taken, which it just feels like a very slow suicide when we're with him.
Yeah. So what would you do if you decided you had to live in the woods for 7 years?
I'd probably keep my barn. I would need to store things somewhere. Whereas he's just like getting rid of everything. And then I think even at the end of the book when he does, and it was this back and forth. It's like, is it about like the ecological preservation, or is it about kind of the self-erasure? And at the end of the book, when he does kind of give up this property, it says he puts some stipulation in the contract that they can never, I think, subdivide it or maybe even develop on the property. So he does kind of end up leaning toward, I guess, his like environmentalist roots. But I don't think it's clear that that's where it would have ended up if he had just stayed there on his own.
Yeah. Robin, Jen, any desire to just drop out and...
I will never live anywhere where I can't order food to my house. Never.
Yeah. Robin?
I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and, I have really loved getting accustomed to people and all their annoyances. I would miss it, and plus I can isolate if I, am not careful. So I might get to the point where I forget the sound of my own voice, which would be really, hard to come back from.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that, on both senses. I live downtown, and I'm retired, and I think about I could go live on a lake somewhere or do that, and I really would miss just being able to walk wherever I can to get whatever I need. And I grew up in more town, more suburbs, but like contiguous suburbs of New York and Chicago, so they were much more urban. So yeah, I don't think I'd be very good at it. I did used to have a little log cabin down in Brown County, and would go down on weekends, and I would leave, and I'd go, oh man, there is nothing to do here. And then after a couple of hours, I'd be going, oh, there is nothing to do here. So we mentioned the kids. Leah was 13 and Asher was 9. Alex, I want to say in your magazine, you linked to a video, an interview with Jess Walter, which actually made me feel really glad that we don't do interviews on this show, because really all you can do is kind of suck up to the author when you're interviewing the author. You can't actually talk about the book or what you thought about it. But I think one of the things that the interviewer said was that the kids were just felt so kid-like, as opposed to a lot of other kids in novels. Were they really kid-like? Were they acting their age?
They were pretty good, I thought. I thought Leah might have acted a little more like a 15-year-old than a 13-year-old at times, but and how old was Asher?
He was 9.
9. He felt about right.
Yeah.
I thought they were pretty good too, but I'm not super close to any kids right now, so I was like, I don't know. I didn't feel suspicious of their behavior, honestly, and it's pretty typical for a young girl to have a crush on an older boy too, so that didn't seem weird to me. Maybe a little parentified, but not seeming too much older than her age, I didn't think.
Yeah, I didn't think they were too bad. I thought Asher was really good, actually, and Leah, I thought, her naming all the colors was maybe a little advanced for her age, but it was fun. But how about other characters? Let's talk about Bethany. Was her teenage trauma believable?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it rang true, and I like the kind of her big scene at the end where she, or Reese goes off to the music festival that she's at, and the old boyfriend that she's reconnected with, and what that taking that step away from Shane is like for her. And it felt pretty good to me.
Yeah, I guess I questioned the importance of that one event in kind of the ongoing trauma of her life. Obviously, there was a lot more than that, and she was, getting stoned in the middle of the school day when the stuff with Reese happened. So she had some issues anyway. I did think it was, I do think that it seemed like the book turned emotionally on the scene where, I forget what it was that Reese said to her, but she said something about how, how he had always been disappointed in her, everything she'd done, and that just hit him. He did not realize that, and it was pretty clear throughout the book that he was, he very often expressed disappointment to himself anyway. But yeah, she seemed to make some bad choices. Yeah, leaving the kids, that was not the coolest thing to do.
No, especially when she suspected that was it Shane, her boyfriend, would come after her. I guess husband would come after her to the point where I guess she told her daughter where to go.
She did.
And I also thought it was a pretty bad idea to tell her daughter what she was doing. That seemed like a weird choice to me.
Did anyone believe that Shane had killed Bethany?
Not really.
No. Didn't suspect it.
No.
No, I mean, partly because it felt like too light of a book, I think, to introduce that at the point where I feel like that would have been introduced. And then also Shane just didn't feel like that level of a threat.
Yeah, Robin, we were talking a little bit just before we got started here about just kind of the themes of the book and the alienation and society. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, I was comparing it to the Tim O'Brien book that we read on the show. I cannot remember the name. Something America, right?
America something.
I mean, I guess spoiler alert for those who might not have heard that one yet, but I did not love that book.
Me either.
None of us did.
No.
It was a big disappointment.
And it was so long, too.
Yeah.
But I guess I did notice that like it shared with this book at least a seeming concern with, grappling with the changes that have happened over the past, 15 years, I guess, or 10. God, has it only been like 10 years? Feels like 15. The past 10 years and trying to make some sense of that. But I think like that book too, it feels like a subject that's just so huge. You either have to write a much bigger book or you have to choose a much smaller piece of that change to examine, because you're gonna fall short if you don't. You're not gonna, like this book felt like it took a really big bite and then just sort of like mouthed at it for 200 pages and spit it out.
Yeah, that book was America Fantastica, by the way. And we are talking about Jess Walter's novel, So Far Gone. That one was a much worse book.
It was, yeah.
That was a big drag. And Steve Woods was on that show, and he just revered Tim O'Brien, and he did his best to have good things to say about the book, but it was really hard.
Yeah, that was a stinker.
It was surprisingly not great.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about other characters? What other characters stood out?
Brian and Joni were pretty great, I thought. They were very enjoyable, kind of self-contained, a little bit plot devicey, but still like warm, fun human beings. I enjoyed spending time with them.
Yeah, I like Brian. I like Brian and Joni both. It was interesting that we kept getting a mention of Brian's gun.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to have to go off at some point. And we didn't really see how, but we knew it was there all the time. Who else? How about who was the big bad guy? Dean Burris, Dominion Eagle Killer. I thought he was a pretty good villain.
Yeah, it felt like two different people almost. I like his introduction. I don't know. Clearly he was dangerous, but he was so much worse at the end when he needed to be kind of the like finale villain to be defeated. I didn't feel like it had been completely set up that he would be so like over the top evil.
Yeah, he wasn't the best final boss.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it should have been somebody we hadn't seen before, or a militia or cult leader, or somebody who could step on the stage and kind of be worse than anything we've seen before. But I understand his what he was doing as a like plot function, but it felt very much like, well, gotta wrap this up. We're gonna have a big battle scene, and then it's gonna be over.
I mean, did we need the big battle scene at the end?
Robin, you know what we needed to do? We needed to kill Shane.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like, okay, now we have wrapped this up in a satisfying way. Right. Yeah.
Is he like all the people that died of COVID who didn't get COVID shots or something? Like people relatively nice people putting themselves in danger for no reason because they're being influenced by other stupid, more malicious people and just dying.
Yeah.
A useless death.
Yeah, but we needed Shane to die so everyone could move on.
That did seem to move everything forward, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I felt a lot like there was a lot of stuff that just happened for plot purposes.
I did too.
I thought I could see the structure underneath the book.
Yeah. And that felt like the explanation to me for the reason, like that the stuff with Leah disappearing and everyone going to sleep, to me, that's why, because everything was on rails by that point, and he was just trying to get it. I mean, he certainly could have written that out, and he should have thought of it, but, you know, he was in a hurry to get to the end, I felt like, by that time, and it felt like, whoa, okay, like, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah. I thought it was really shocking. Alex, did you see that coming?
Shane dying?
No, I mean, just the whole violence at the end.
No, I mean, I don't know how I was imagining it would go. But yeah, it just felt very out of step with the tone of the rest of the book. I mean, it would have been more in keeping with it, I guess, if somehow, like, Shane and his buddies had been humiliated at the hands of the airsoft rifle, right? Like if they had suffered this defeat where their kind of like bravado was revealed to be a sham or something. I mean, there were like probably 100 ways you could end it.
Like if Dean got his eye shot out by the
that
by the Red Ryder.
Yeah, I think that
gun
would have felt more like tonally appropriate, you know, and like Shane's revealed to just be all bluster, and so, you know, the separation's not as difficult as the family feared. I don't know. There's probably 100 different ways you could have ended it without a big blazing gun battle, but it feels a little like, I don't know. This is probably making too broad a generalization, but it does feel like there are a lot of narratives right now that are kind of influenced maybe by kind of superhero movies, that everything has to end in a climactic battle where, you know, it's good versus evil. It felt too comic booky by the end, I guess.
Right. Or that they need it for like the limited series adaptation. You know, I get that sense more than I like lately about books, that like they're just kind of dry runs for the series.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I have to say that tone shift, that violent scene really affected my enjoyment of the book. Is that fair? I mean, I thought it was at least, you know, diverting to read, and then I kind of went, oh man.
Yeah, I felt like I was forcing myself through the last like quarter of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I skimmed some of the later parts of it. I had that same feeling more about leaving the girl out by herself that you guys seem to have about the murder. I was like, yeah, okay. I listen to a lot of true crime, so I was like, all right, somebody got killed, that's fine.
Yeah, true. The true crime impact on all of our sensibility.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So far gone. What is that a good title for the book? The author says it was meant as something of a question, like, are we so far gone that we can't come back together as a society?
I mean, I feel like he kind of answered it with a yes by killing Shane. Like the end of the book was like, yeah, like once you're in it till the end. I don't feel like it ended on a particularly hopeful note in that regard.
I saw that question about being hopeful, and I was like, in what universe is this book hopeful?
Well, I don't know. Can you answer that, Robin?
No, I can't. I did not know that was that he thought of this as a question, but I just would reiterate, I think that is way too big a question for this book, and maybe like any novel that we're grappling with, what we're still in the middle of too.
Yeah.
It feels like we need more perspective maybe to be able to really write the novel that's really going to cut to...
We're just going to have to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and then maybe the switchboard, if there were a switchboard, would be flooded with calls now, you know, recommending novels that have done it, you know, really well.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll throw that out there. If anyone knows a hopeful novel that addresses our current crisis, please let us know. Because I didn't really find it hopeful at all. I mean, I understand the idea that it was hopeful that Reese was now reconnected with his daughter and his family now that Shane was dead and he didn't want to punch anybody anymore. But I did not find the tone particularly hopeful. And I guess speaking of that, how about that ending? What did we think of the ending? other than it maybe not being that hopeful?
I mean, for the individual characters, it was fairly hopeful. I was happy that Lucy moved on from like these sort of grumpy loser older men, and the little family seemed like they were doing better, even with Shane dead. Presumably, the gay kid gets to be gay.
Or not. He swore he wasn't, so.
I don't believe him.
Yeah, I don't think I do either. Yeah, how about you, Alex? Where'd you land on this?
Yeah, I like the ending. I mean, I am just kind of a sucker for books that like wrap things up and tell you what happened to this character and that character. And you know, I did like kind of following people a little bit further along. And yeah, to Jen's point, we didn't really talk about Lucy a whole lot. But
that was another character that kind of disappeared.
Yeah, she was great too.
Yeah, no, I thought she was a great character. I thought she really helped kind of give a different perspective on Reese, which was helpful in kind of figuring him out a little bit. I didn't find him especially likable, but I did find him sympathetic, kind of like Robin was saying. But yeah, so I liked kind of getting that moment with her at the end where she, you know, very clearly moves on. So yeah, I liked that last section. I think it was called like What Happened After.
I think that was it.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it just as a section unto itself, but it was somewhat maybe dampened by, again, kind of that climax right before it.
Yeah, what'd you think, Robin?
Oh, yeah, well, you know, I think I'm not really all that concerned with, you know, good things happening to people at the end of novels. Like, I mean, if they do and the ending is great, then great, but I'd rather have a really well, you know, written, compelling ending than have everyone turn out happy. I mean, it's one of the advantages of reading fiction is that we can, you know, we can like shoulder that without having to, you know, like go to pieces about it. And so like you got to take advantage of that, I think, as a writer. You know, you reminded me like describing those headings though at the end, and I remember having this thought because he keeps cutting away from characters to, you know, say, hey, here's what happened to someone so and so, and I remember thinking like, oh, this is a really bad sign. Like when at the end of the novel you're like cutting back and forth between all the different characters to like describe what already happened to them. You know, it just really took the wind out of the whole thing for me.
Yeah, let's talk about, though, as I think I mentioned at the start of the show, we all just a couple months ago read Friends Helping Friends by Patrick
Hoffman.
Definitely a crime novel. Also, a lot of comedy in it, if not, I mean, a very different comic tone, but also involving kind of a white nationalist organization, crime organization. How would you compare them? Let me ask a different question. Let's go to, would you recommend this book, and which one would you recommend more highly? Alex?
Yes, I think despite you know, some of my criticisms of the Jess Walter book, I did enjoy it. I thought it didn't overstay its welcome. I think if it had been, you know, 50%, 100% as long, I would have been like, okay, this is not my thing. But one of the enticements to fill in for your absent guest today was, hey, Alex, this is a short book. You can probably knock it out fast.
True.
And it was a quick read. So for what it was, I enjoyed it. I think, I mean, I know I liked Friends Helping Friends better. I just felt as a book, I enjoyed it more. And I think it did a better job of kind of establishing what the stakes were. Like the characters in that were very much like their lives were in danger, and you understood that was the situation. You understood everybody they were involved with had ill intentions for them, from the DEA agents to the, you know, militia group. So I felt like that clarity helped make it more compelling. Whereas this book, again, the stakes just, anytime they would start to ramp up, it seemed like he kind of deliberately pulled back. And my guess would be he was doing that to focus on the characters, which I think is what he was really interested in, was doing these kind of chapter by chapter character studies. But it didn't make the novel as a whole feel as cohesive to me, I guess.
Yeah, I focus on the characters, but a very plot-heavy novel for wanting to focus on the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Robin, how about you?
Well, it sounds like from all the laurels that Jess Walter has gotten for his other books, I guess I would recommend, even though I have not read them, starting with something else, Like I can't guess that this is his best by far. And so I guess I would definitely recommend the Patrick Hoffman Friends Helping Friends over this one. I mean, like Alex, I think I thought it just knew what it wanted to be and what it needed to be much better. And I think, this kind of shows that, like, it's never a bad idea to start with your characters and really make them your central concern. And if a big idea or, the answer to a big question, like, comes along in the process of following them, like, definitely follow them. But, the first thing, people first, I say.
Yeah. How about you, Jen?
Pretty similar to the other people on the panel. The other book was a better book and with better stakes. I did enjoy this book. I don't know that I would recommend it. If someone said they were going to read it, I'd be like, yeah, you might like it. But I wouldn't be like, you have to read So Far Gone. It's so good. Whereas if someone was like, do you know of a good crime novel, I would recommend the book whose title I've already forgotten, but which I thought was a really good...
Friends Helping Friends.
Friends Helping Friends was a really good, well-done book with just clarity compared to this one.
Yeah, I think I agree with everybody. I think I think the characters were just more believable. I mean, the motivations were clear.
Yeah.
Even all those minor characters, most of whom had some kind of bad intentions, I think they were all very believable in a way these characters weren't. I kind of felt like this was kind of Richard Russo light. It was really nice that it was a short read. I kind of enjoyed the characters, getting to know the characters, but man, that violent episode at the end really threw me off, and I'm not sure I would recommend it wholeheartedly anyway.
But we have 4 copies if anyone out there does want to read it.
We do. So, yeah, just hit us up. We'd be happy to send them to you. Well, how about, does anybody have anything that they would heartily recommend us reading? Jen?
I have not been reading because of my eyes.
Oh, right.
I recommend binging RuPaul's Drag Race. Well, I had COVID a couple weeks ago. I spent some time watching RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay.
Up on it. Fun. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I have been watching episodes that took place in 2017, so I've been experiencing a lot of, like, sadness at people talking about fighting back, and it went pretty well. Things were going pretty good. The resistance was fine. We got rid of him in 2020. How were they to know that he would be back?
Yeah.
It's really kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, I really can get into some of those competition shows.
Yeah, this one's good.
Yeah, I have never watched RuPaul's Drag Race, but yeah, I probably will. I like cooking competition shows mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is like people being fun and arty.
Yeah, I do like. I mean, I really like Project Runway also.
Yeah. It's got some of the elements of that, and then there's some good drama. There's some good fights between people that are pretty enjoyable. There's some good slang. You learn a whole new slang, which is fun.
All right. Yeah, I will have to catch up with that. Thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Robin?
I recently read that novel Pan by Michael Clune, which I highly recommend. A pretty gripping to me read, and some really interesting ideas.
Yeah, what's it about?
It's about a young man, a high school, I want to say junior or something like that. So it's been a while, guys. I want to say in the 90s, perhaps early 90s. He has his first kind of psychotic break. Has a starts having really intense panic attacks.
Pan.
Yes.
Yeah, great. That sounds great. Yeah, Alex.
I'm going to recommend a book I read recently called. I normally try to do something related to the book at hand, but I don't have one today. But I will recommend a nonfiction book called Global Brain by Howard Bloom, it was written a long time ago, but feels sort of weirdly like prescient in the age of AI. It's kind of all about how life as a whole is a learning network, and it kind of starts with single cell bacteria and then works his way up to higher order mammals, and by the end of the book you're like, yeah, I guess all of life is a learning network. So it just sort of an interesting way to look at kind of the way life evolves and develop, and like I said, especially today, it feels like his thesis rings pretty true just watching the way these AI systems develop.
Yeah, that reminds me of, sounds a little bit like Yuval Noah Harari's latest book. It's about AI and about, just kind of how really a lot like that, like society is kind of like a learning system. It's a really interesting book. So I'm a sucker for lists of like underappreciated writers and novels, and every year I try to find a couple to read. Has anybody read Mavis Gallant, The Dead Avocado?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, I've read her stories. I don't know that I've read that.
Yeah,
Is that the book or a story?
That's a novel.
Okay.
Yeah, Becky still makes fun of me for liking that. She couldn't do it. But like James Salter, have you ever read James Salter? Light Years is a great one, or Charles Portis, Masters of Atlantis. And I also just read The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn by Brian Moore. Anyone know that one? These are all on those lists of like, novels that are that everyone should read that nobody's read. So, but one book I've seen on these lists for years that I had never read was Stoner, which is a 1965 novel by John Williams. I finally decided to read it. Actually, when I was in Africa, I was reading it, and wow, it is really great. It is a really quiet story. It's the life of this William Stoner who grows up in poverty in Missouri, and in the early 1900s, he finds his calling as an English teacher at the University of Missouri. He has difficulties in his life and his marriage, his career. He perseveres with kindness and grace and kind of a naivete, and he was really easy to root for. And it's really just a beautiful portrait of a very ordinary man and his loves and his failures, and a minor character who has somehow become important in some people's lives, and becomes kind of a universal character. It really is a beautiful book, Stoner by John Williams. I really would recommend it. And with that, that is about it. We would love for you to subscribe to our Substack for show notes and other stuff. Remember, you can stream Radio Free Book Club practically anywhere you get your podcasts. And with that, for Robin Beery, Jen Bingham, Alex Mattingly, and all the members of Radio Free Book Club, I'm Ken Honeywell. Thanks for listening. And join us next month when we'll take a break from current novels to discuss a classic that's celebrating its 70th birthday this year and has been in the news lately. It is Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita. We hope you will join us. Until then, read a book.